All right, everyone. We are again there. We're getting to the end of the season, but that doesn't stop us. As I am Frank about sports, I have some guests with me and a special guest. We have Metsfan from Metsfan on YouTube. We have Rivera from Subway to Share, our special guest. And we have Mets Rage Talk with Hayden. So I will give everyone a chance to introduce themselves, talk about whatever they have going on or anything that is upcoming. So let us start with our very special guest, Subway to Share.
What's going on, guys? I'm happy to be on the show, man. Very fun doing this.
All right. He has a podcast called Subway to Share. You can find him on Twitter. I have everybody's information in the description, so be sure to check him out. Metsfan from YouTube, what do you got cooking?
You're muted.
And your microphone is muted.
No, my microphone's muted. There's another thing about me. I make baseball videos about analytics, uncovering that unseen truth behind the game. I have a lot of fun stuff planned that is coming out in the offseason, a series that I'm very excited about regarding some Mets history. So make sure to look out for that. But LFGM, the clock is ticking on this team, and we need to win now.
Yes, indeed. And lastly, but not least, Mets Talk with Hayden.
What's going on, everyone? Mets Talk with Hayden is the name. Raging is the game. Pretty tough last couple weeks, the days for the New York Mets, so we're going to get into that, but please feel free to check me out. Mets Talk with Hayden is the name. Live streams on series summaries, summaries, previews, news, updates, predictions, rages, all that great stuff. Let's go, Mets, and thanks to Frank for hosting today's stream.
Of course. All right, so let's talk about well, listen, I wear winners, so if the Mets have won the series, I have the Mets stuff on. But you know what? Whoever.
I mean, I'm not the one to talk, anyways.
Exactly. Marlins talk with Hayden, but I wear winners. That's the way I look at it. So the takeaways from the Mets' recent play, just basically this last week in general. Let's start with Subway to Shea. What are your main takeaways from this most recent week?
Well, I thought that this was a must-win series, and they got swept away. So we are inching closer to the end game for the New York Mets, and it's not looking pretty. The manager made some interesting comments saying that he thinks they're still in it, but I'm as optimistic as they come. I've been touting the Mets all year long. Even getting tweets all season, they're done, it's over. And I'm always saying, hey, it's not over until they're mathematically eliminated. But even I have to admit that Luis Rojas is a little bit out of his mind right now.
All right. Well, I mean, we're all in agreement there. I mean, that's definitely a takeaway. And it's just like with Rojas, the 60-game season said, all right, we'll give him a chance. Wasn't a full year. But the more and more I've seen from Rojas, the less I like him because he continues to make mistake after mistake. And he makes the same mistakes, too. I mean, like the fact that he doesn't adjust is very frustrating. So let's talk with Hayden. What have been your main takeaways from the most recent week?
Yeah, I mean, Mets are very, very annoying. We'll go with that word. Expectations were very high going into the season. I looked back on MLB Network this morning, and they were showing the PECOTA rankings, and I was just like, yeah, I wasn't super happy on that. Very tough. Obviously, we're going to get into Luis Rojas and a lot of the front office executives. Pretty unfortunate news hearing about Sandy Alderson, and there's another thing that was also brought up about Sandy Alderson and who he may want to keep. I don't know if you guys heard the news about that, Luis Rojas. That would be very, very agonizing if that actually occurred. So it's pretty tough. People keep saying, this series will determine it. We lose the series. Actually, the next series is going to determine it. We take 2 out of 3. Oh, the next series determines it. Well, to my knowledge, everyone said the Dodgers and Giants was determine it. We did terrible in that, and apparently we're still alive, according to people. So, honestly, I don't know. We're 3 games under 500. Personally, we're looking at a 3% chance.
Yeah, the odds are not in our favor. But are there any positive analytics or metrics from this most recent week that we could be excited about?
Yeah, I mean, aside from the game in St. Louis, I think the offense looks better, but it's definitely not what we want it to be at all. The trend this year has been 1-run games, which we've been on the short end of, and it sucks. It makes you think that maybe if we just had maybe like 25% less of injuries this year, maybe like the offense was just mediocre, we'd be in better shape. But the slim chance becomes slimmer and slimmer when you continue to squander opportunities like they've been doing the past week. You're running out of time.
Exactly. So you say the chances are slim, but if you had to put a number on it from 1 to 10 on a scale, how confident are you that the Mets will reach the postseason, Mets fan?
I mean, how I see it, it's like the Mets don't sweep Philly, it's done. Like, it's completely over. I was talking about this on Twitter last night. 2 out of 3 is barely acceptable. After today, if the Phillies lose, we're a game and a half behind them. They win, 2.5 behind. They win, 2.5 behind them. The Braves are postponed today, and they play the Giants tomorrow, who are a good team. Like I've said for weeks, the table is set. Now capitalize. They haven't been doing that. So will they do it this time? I mean, I fucking doubt it at this point. So less than a 2, I guess. I'll go less than a 2.
We'll go with the 1.5. All right.
1.5.
If you had to put a number on, what would your number be?
I'm gonna go 1.
Well, yeah, I mean, can't blame them with the way they've played lately, especially this most recent series that was so big. It looks like they have momentum against the Yankees. Just the way they completely squander it, it really makes you run low on confidence. And you, Anthony, you said you've been positive with this team. What's your number?
Yeah, I'm going to say 3. You just mentioned it. The momentum was there on Sunday. They won a emotional series against the Yankees, and they flip-flop now. Now the Yankees are on a roll off of that, and the Mets are squandering. The Mets have been squandering all season long. They had almost 90 days they were in the lead for the division. They couldn't do anything with that. At the trade deadline, they had opportunity to make moves. They didn't do anything there. Besides getting biased, that wasn't enough. They blew games against Pittsburgh and the Nationals and the Marlins. I mean, they have not done anything to sustain a winning streak at all.
The connection dropped for me, so I missed the last bit, but I get what you're saying about how it is very frustrating that they never capitalize. And for me, that's why if I had to put a number, I would go 1, because I think that, like, you'll see good games like the Yankee game, or there have been other games like, wow, they beat this team. That was a good game. All these guys stepped up. But the lack of consistency throughout the entire season has been what has been frustrating, because when they were in the lead, like you mentioned, Anthony, those 90 days or so, the lead could have been so much bigger because they had plenty of winnable games, especially at a time period where the rest of the division was struggling. For so long, the Mets were in first place in large part due to the Braves and Phillies being under 500 and the rest of the division. So, like, if they just capitalized even there, they wouldn't be in the back looking in. It would be a much tighter race right now, and it wouldn't be as unlikely for them to make a run. And now it's like we're looking at the wild card. And even if the best case scenario Mets did make the wild card, right now you're up in a 1 game against the Dodgers. I mean, and seeing the way the Mets played against the Dodgers, you could say, 1-run loss. They played them tough. At the end of the day, if you lose 1 run to the Dodgers, there's no moral victory there. Like, I always say it's a win or loss business. So the Mets have had more 1-run losses than anybody, but it doesn't matter. Your run differential means nothing. What matters is you win. If you win by 1, if you win by 10, as long as you're winning and you're in the postseason, then, like they call it postseason, it's a brand new season. So you don't worry about that other stuff. But they just haven't shown me consistency. So I would go with a 1. But let's go to the positive. That Sunday night game, it was such a big game. It was very emotional. It was controversial. And it was led by Francisco Lindor, the guy that is getting paid the most money on this team, even though the contract has not taken place quite yet, kicks in next year. But all year long, a lot of fans have been disappointed, waiting for the big Lindor signature moment, showing us what he could do in a Mets uniform. And he did it in Citi Field on national TV against a big rival in a big stretch of the season in September, where the Mets need all the wins they can get. So when Francisco Lindor hit those 3 home runs, Anthony, did you feel like that was the moment where he kind of turns it around and finally starts to become the Francisco Lindor we've been hoping for?
Well, that's what everybody else is thinking. I have not given up any hope on him all season long. I understand that he was not hitting for the first 2 months. He was atrocious. But then, ever since the end of May, if you look at his stats, he's been slowly climbing up there. And anytime you're going to see him in a big game like this is what I'm going to start to expect every time out, because He's done it in the playoffs against the Yankees. He's done it in the World Series. This is something to look forward to going into, 2022 and the rest of his time being here. So I am solely behind Lindor moving forward.
All right, I like to hear that. What about you, Mets fan? Do you think this was the turning point, or do you still see more? Or has he been the guy all along because his OPS plus is good?
I mean, I said it last year. I said it last week. Slowly but surely, you will get the Francisco Lindor that you traded for. And all the pieces have been there all year. He just hasn't been able to put it together. Lindor is a five-tool player. And the thing about five-tool players is that they always find a way to bring value if one aspect of their game is struggling. One thing I like about Lindor when he was slumping is just because he wasn't over-swinging. He wasn't chasing pitches. His discipline's elite. It's been elite for a long time. Okay. And that's why I'm confident in him getting it going in the future because of just the mental makeup that he has. And a serviceable day for the type of player that Lindor is, it's reaching base safely 2 to 3 times in the game. And there's been about 8 times since the end of May that he has not done that. I mean, everyone asks him to do it when it matters too. I mean, he's top 10 in all of baseball with runners in scoring position. He's top 15 in all of baseball in high leverage. I mean, and did I mention that he's a well above average base runner and a generational defender? I mean, the things that he brings, the Mets are pretty much nothing without. I mean, we got to realize for a second, the defense was terrible last year. One of the worst defensive teams in baseball. They are the worst base running team in baseball this year. They are terrible with runners in scoring position. So, I mean, the fact that the value of Lindor this year has come into so much question because of his batting average, it drives me crazy. Now, the 3-homer game, it was awesome. That was Lindor's night, and it was electric. But the pieces have been there all year. I just hope Mets fans realize the type of player Lindor is, and he has been for his entire career. I hope they get kind of an impression of the Francisco Lindor that they expected and the Francisco Lindor that is actually right in front of them.
What about you, Hayden? I mean, you're more of a batting average guy than WRC plus guy. So did you think that game, because I mean, these weren't just any home runs. This wasn't 3 home runs in a 10-3 loss or in a 10-3 victory. I mean, these were 3 massive home runs, especially the last 2 late in the game on the line. And Lindor was able to win it on national TV with the stadium going crazy. It's packed. It's Mets, Yankees. I mean, it had everything you could hope for. But did you feel like that was the game or no?
Yeah, I mean, listen, as you guys know, I'm very tough on Francisco Lindor this year. Pretty much, it's concerning, to go into your first year, your major league contract, and play like this. Carlos Beltran, Mike Piazza, sure, they did the same thing and they were fine throughout the remainder of their contract. But you're looking at a different position player. Obviously, Lindor kind of has a year or 2 track record of some poor performancing. Kind of to bounce on to what Mets fans said, his plate discipline has been there. He's not striking out a lot. He's hitting the ball well. Launch angle, XBA, yada, yada, yada. And it's resulting in outs. Well, sadly, baseball is a result-oriented game. You don't get points for how well you hit the ball or what the XBA was or what the launch angle was in terms of degrees. So, yeah, I mean, it's very tough for Lindor. Obviously, I don't want to go into this offseason having the huge question is, will Lindor break out? Will Lindor break out? Will Lindor break out? That's going to be all offseason. I think that's pretty obvious. That's going to be all offseason. Talking about Lindor's game, great. He had 3 home runs. So did Robbie Cano against the Padres. Does that mean he get 3? Does that mean he should get that much money?
Well, he kind of already is.
He already did.
No one attacked him. So, listen, there were so many more times where I think Lindor could have easily stepped up. Miami, Pittsburgh. I mean, we could probably name 10 teams off the bat. The point is, I really hate to be tough on Lindor, but I think what we saw in that Yankees game, listen, he's not going to hit 3 home runs every single game. His wins above replacement isn't going to come into that every single time, but I'm hoping to see more of what we saw in that game throughout the season. At Nationals Park last time, and the second to last time, he had great appearances there. And then he struggled following that. And people said the same thing. Oh, he's back. Let's go. I hope he really can break out. Listen, I think he is a great generational player. He's great defensively. He's saved. I mean, tell me what his DRS is. Go ahead. He's great defensively, but you don't pay that much for a defensive guy. But overall, in terms of the Yankees game, I think it was great energy that he brought. Great momentum, great morale. But overall, I really hope he could do this throughout more of the season. And you know what? We'll see in 2022 be a fresh, clean slate for him.
Yeah, I think that's going to be a big thing. So much of his struggles have been mental. He's talked multiple times about the whole booing and how much it's affected him and everything like that. But the way he got cheered when he hit those home runs and got the curtain call, I feel like that was a big monkey off the back, so to speak, that he could kind of relax a little bit more and be better. I mean, this Cardinals series, he was doing pretty good up until that 10th inning at bat where he hit the double play. What else did you want to say, Hayden?
No, and I was just going to share him because I know I just bashed Lindor. He's getting better. Don't get me wrong. The last 15 games, he is getting better. I'll argue that.
Yeah, no, I mean, he's improving. Like we said, the batting average is not where you want it to be, but those other numbers, WRC plus, OPS plus, all that's good. His defense has been very good, and I think his base running would be even better if this was a more aggressive-minded team. If the manager, Luis Rojas, sent runners more, I think we'd see even more value from Lindor on a consistent basis, and maybe at least a couple more runs here or there. But I think it was big for him to do it in Citi Field because you talk about the Nationals Park, it was on the road. But I think the fact that we saw it in a big game that he still has the talent that he did in Cleveland. The talent is there. But it's all going to come down to consistency. Like you said, hey, he's not going to hit 300 runs in every game. But if you're just doing something that's helping the team offensively and defensively more games than not, that's what a max player does. And he also brings leadership, which doesn't show up in any stats, but you could see if you watch game-to-game basis, helping out the pitchers, helping out the defenders. You have something you want to add, Anthony?
Yeah, can I just say that, he struggled the first 2 months really badly. Then he got hurt, and he was out that was a big injury. I mean, he was out for a long time. And, let's not forget that they have not put a consistent lineup. He's been batting second for most of the season with Michael Conforto, who hasn't done anything all season, and now is finally starting to hit. Dom Smith, another guy that has been disappointing hitting. Who else have they thrown behind him?
Jeff McNeil's batted behind him.
Yep.
They've had a lot of different guys up there for sure. And I think the other thing that's very weird about Lindor, Metsfan talk about him being, one of the better guys on the team with runners in scoring position, one of the better guys in the league in high leverage, but he bats second where you have the pitcher spot from, and you have right now Jonathan Villar. And Villar has done good things for this team, but doesn't get on base a lot. So Lindor doesn't even have that many opportunities to drive runs in. So maybe that's something they could play with. Move Alonso to 2, maybe move Lindor 3. It's something to try. I mean, again, we talk about Rojas. There are other things you could do to generate offense. If you've seen that all season long, you're in September now, you have not been able to score runs, you got to shake it up a little bit just to find that combination. You have something you want to say, Mets fan, about the lineup?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he's third in plate appearances with those runners in scoring position and high leverage. So even with being out for a long time, he's still he's still getting those opportunities. But yeah, I mean, batting second, he's usually not in that sort of, realm. But we've had a lot of injuries, so you obviously have Jose Peraza probably up there too. I mean, it's kind of hard to judge, but I mean, it's just been an awkward season. I mean, that's just how it's been.
And I hope that if the Mets could just keep Brandon Nimmo healthy all season long, which this was another year we did not see Nimmo fully healthy, that's a guy that gets on base all the time. So he'll bat right in front of Lindor. So Lindor, again, would have even more opportunities to give just more production because since he doesn't chase and he doesn't strike out, who knows? Maybe he gets more sac flies. Maybe he gets more, at-bats where he moves Nimmo over and then Alonso or Byers or somebody brings Nimmo home. And we just talk about generating good offense. That's one way to do it. He bunts a little too much for my liking, especially sacrifice bunts. But other than that, it definitely is unfortunate, but we still have a long time to go. He's still young. The talent is there. So it's all going to come down to consistency. So let's talk about the other offseason acquisition that the New York Mets made, James Mccann. He's had a bad year, no doubt about it, but he did play very well against the Yankees. Had a triple, had a home run, had a double, sacrifice fly. He did a lot of things. So after seeing that performance against the Yankees, can he get back to his all-star form? And I want to start with Anthony because I know how everyone else feels about James McCann. So I want to get a fresh take on the New York Mets.
Oh, I know how Mets fan feels about James McCann.
I think James McCann knows how Mets fan feels about James McCann because Marcus Strowman blocked him. So there you go.
I don't know if that's it, but who knows?
Everyone thought that at the beginning of the season when they got James McCann that he was going to put up the same production as a JT Realmuto. And they're not the same player at all. Like, everyone should have known that when we signed him. They are not the same player. For most of the season, actually, McCann his average has been pretty on par with his career stats. The big problem for McCann is when they took the platoon away when he was platooning with Mcneill. That was the probably best thing that happened for him. And they both were playing well. And then for some reason, Luis Rojas took that away. And then both of the players started struggling. So, I didn't expect too much from McCann when they signed him. I thought that this was kind of going to be where we were with him, batting .230 and maybe 14 home runs and 50 RBIs. He's been a double play machine. It's been a struggle. We weren't getting, the next coming of Mike Piazza, or we weren't getting another Paul Aduca. We were just going to get that. Basically, for me, bringing in James McCann was just a holding place for when Francisco Alvarez was ready to go in a couple of years. That's all it was for me. I just wanted someone competent enough that was going to be able to turn around and make a tag, unlike what Wilson Ramos was able to do when he was with the Mets. At least this guy defensively, he could throw people out at second. He can move around a little bit. It's an upgrade over Wilson Ramos, but, very slightly.
Yeah, I mean, and it is really unfortunate because he's not used to playing 5 games a week, 6 games a week, especially behind the plate. He was part-time catching with Grandal, and most time he was the DH. So I think this is very new for him. And that's, like you said, it's probably why it's hurt his performance. When he was playing first base, that's when he was having production. But now that Tomas Nido is back, there's no excuse why you wouldn't, just for the best of both of these guys, let Nido play a little more. McCann will be more rested. You get a better McCann. You get a better Nido. You're going to upgrade your defense. So I think just splitting it would be much better for everybody involved.
What about something that Luis Rojas talked about? He's talked about this whole week of resting players, and this guy needs rest, and this guy can't play because he's tired. There's like no stamina on the team. That's why they're not going to get to the finish line. I mean, platoon some of these guys, some of the best Mets teams had platoons in them. Look at the 86 team. Look how many platoon players they had on that team. And the egos kind of went out the window because they were winning and they wanted to win a World Series. I mean, at some point, something's got to give with some of these comments Rojas makes and the play that's on the field.
Yeah, and unfortunately, when you get this late in the season, the only thing you can do is just get rid of Rojas. I mean, that's the only way things are really going to change because it's clear Rojas is not going to change. I mean, he's done this stuff and said the same stuff all year long. What about you, Hayden? Were you slightly encouraged from what you saw from McCann, hitting some fly balls, not just grounding out, not just striking out, drawing some walks? That's another thing he's done more this past week, which he had not done all year long.
Yeah,
Hayden.
I mean, I think Anthony honestly literally just summed up everything I was going to say. Pretty much, Anthony literally summed up everything I was going to say. He's a guy that is the holding spot until Alvarez is called up anywhere in 2 to 4 years. During the offseason, everyone was talking about how elite he is. People saying, oh, he's going to be the next Mike Piazza. I was like, yeah, I don't know about that. And then when, Anthony also mentioned the differences between Realmuto and Mccann. And SNY on Instagram, probably at least December, January, posted the split differences between Mccann versus Realmuto and all, average OPS, every stat that I'm sure a Mets fan loves, pretty much favored Mccann offensively. But you have to look at the sample size of that. like Frank said, Mccann was an alternate catcher. He was going out there 1 of 5 days. And that was my biggest concern when we signed him. I thought, okay, yeah, maybe he'd be nice. I was just curious to see how he would transition from a 1 out of 5 day catcher to a catcher 4 out of 5 day. Especially going with, a new staff. I mean, listen, Chicago, they have a great pitching staff. Same for the Mets to an extent. But I was curious how he would work with DeGrom. We know how Syndergaard had the whole thing with Ramos and how they didn't want to work together because he felt Ramos was slow with the pitches in the dirt. Kid's been all right. I was told he was a great framer. He's got like 1 out of 9 pitches framed properly. He blocks the ball to an extent decently well. I mean, I think he's costed us, 1 or 2 games by not, tagging the runner. I think that was the one. There was one in Atlanta where he got the tag on, but then I think there was another one in Atlanta where he just did not touch the bag or something. I don't know. But yeah, pretty much Anthony summed up everything with Mccann. We'll suffer with him for the next 3 years. Hopefully he can get his offensive up because I actually, value offensive catcher's production. They're not just a completely useless offensive bat,
Yeah, like, in the National League, it's with the pitcher batting behind them. You don't want to have 2 guys not doing anything, even though McCann's really done much. But the hope was he would do a little bit. So at least we got everybody, and we can move on to the next topic. So very good. Metsfan, you have anything you want to add positively?
Oh my God. I mean, do I? I mean, can he return to his All-Star 2019 self? I mean, to rephrase it, can he be a mediocre baseball player? Sure. Whatever he does, it's not worth $40 million. Whatever he did before he came to the Mets, it's not worth $40 million. I'm still trying to figure out if this guy is actually a real person, because I don't think it's possible for a professional ball player with the years that he has to have a combined strikeout and ground ball rate of almost 80%. So as I expected, he's just going to fade out in the next few years and join Kevin Plawecki, John Buck, Josh Tolley, Brian Schneider, Amir Santos, Jason Phillips in the Mets catcher graveyard. And, he had his 1 all-star year that is pretty much as good as Michael Conforto this year. And he had a great 2020 as a backup catcher in a Mickey Mouse season. So, and I that's like not even including that historical torture chamber that he calls defense. I mean, no, I don't see anything good happening from him. In fact, I see him getting worse at this point.
Okay, well, there we go. Anyways, let's go to a guy who does have better numbers this year. J.D. Davis. He is a really interesting player because when you look at J.D. Davis' stat line, it looks good. I mean, the average is above 300, OPS above 800, gets on base at a good clip, doesn't strike out too much, but he has not started in a while. He got 1 start against Miami. Other than that, Jonathan VR has been the full-time guy, and that's mainly because of defense. That's because they need somebody to bat leadoff while Nimmo is out, and VR can do some good things on the bases and also some very dumb things on the bases. But I think now we are at a point in the season where it's late September, and we have to be kind of thinking about next year. And we're saying, okay, well, we have J.D. Davis. Is he going to be a part of this team? Is he someone we want to trade? Do we want to bring back Jonathan VR? So I asked the question, should J.D. Davis start more often, particularly at third base? Because he's not really going to play anywhere else, despite what other people may think. He has a good arm, but the range in the outfield, it's just not going to happen, in my opinion. So, Hayden, do you think J.D. Davis should play more often?
Yeah, I mean, J.D. Davis was a guy that I think a lot of Mets fans were kind of surprised with in 2019, Pretty much we know the history with him. He was pretty much, when we got him from Houston, I think myself and everyone on the stream and everyone watching expected him to be a nice little bench bat. Maybe you throw him in left field. Maybe you threw him at third base as a 9th inning defensive adjustment. And so far it's kind of been tough. I think offensively, and a lot of people have been saying it, I kind of feel he's a dead ball merchant. I mean, we've been seeing him this year swing the bat, and these balls literally die out at the warning track. So that really is unfortunate to see out of JD Davis. Like you said, his average, the slash line, it's there. It is a small sample size because, I mean, he started off the season pretty adequate enough, and then he was out for pretty much a while. I mean, obviously, we've seen his defense at third base. It's okay. It started to get a little bit better when he came back. And then you've seen the red-hot Jonathan VR, and then pretty much he took over a spot. And, I mean, could you blame him? I think I'd take Jonathan VR over Davis as of right now in a heartbeat. It was good to see Davis get a nice pitch hit at bat yesterday, get a nice hit. That was good. Honestly, I think with the season dying down, with the playoff chances, shortening minute by minute, day by day, I don't mind giving JD Davis some more time. It still comes down to the question is, are they going to trade him during the offseason? And I think realistically, I think it's a pretty high chance right now. So you may as well play him now. I mean, it depends. If you play him more, is that going to decrease his value? So I don't know what the Mets are working at with him there. Overall, personally, I would love to give this dude some more time. I mean, we're not really going anywhere anyways, so.
Exactly. I mean, because especially if you do have the intention of trading him anyway, I think before you do that, you want to know what you have. I would hate for JD Davis to turn to another guy where we trade him away, he becomes a full-time starter somewhere else, and he does great. And we're like, wow, we trade him away, and now it's like, now we're counting on our rookies, whether it's Vientos or Mauricio or Beatty, to take over, and we hope that they can be good major leaguers. Even though the big-time prospects, it doesn't always necessarily work out that way. Metsfan, I said the batting average is good, but are the other things good as well? Is he getting lucky hits? I mean, is the XBA just as good? What can you tell us about JD? Should he play more?
I mean, I don't think so. And the thing is that I say that because of how much I worried about him not being an everyday player. But he's adjusted to that role pretty well. I mean, he's looked pretty good coming off the bench. And I kind of want to keep it that way. Also, you can't really take VR out of the lineup. I mean, you could probably consider it when Nimmo comes back because you don't need a leadoff hitter. If Jeff Mcneill was hitting a little bit better, then you probably could have him in the leadoff spot. But I like having a strong bench because we can have options for every scenario, even though our manager uses it just for lefty righty only. But yeah, I think he should stay as a bench bat for now. But once you're mathematically out, I'd say toss whatever as an audition for the trade or whatever. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Okay. And what about you, Anthony? Where do you stand on this JD Davis versus Jonathan VR situation?
Forget about putting him at third. Can we at least try him in left field? Because I'm sick and tired of seeing Jeff Mcneil running out there. And then also Dom Smith doesn't have the range. Can we see what if JD Davis has? Obviously, he's not going to play third. They're going to upgrade at some point at third base. They didn't want him in the beginning of the season to play third base. And then look how it started off for him. Errors here, errors there. I think that he's going to be one of those guys that's going to be traded along with possibly, Dom Smith and maybe even a Jeff McNeil. What defensive position are they adequate at? Because we saw with Lindor that Jeff McNeil can't really play that well second base. Then you throw Baez at second base, and now you got both guys playing very well. And then you could throw him at third. He struggled during spring training at third. You throw him in the outfield, and I think this week I've seen enough of Jeff McNeil in the outfield. The only one that has a position would be Dom Smith at first base. That's where he's really good at, first base. And unless we get a DH, I think he's going to be traded as well. But where are those guys going to play? I would actually like to get some outfielders that can throw, to the infield adequately. I mean, every time the ball gets hit and the runner comes in to score, I mean, there's no chance to get them out. I think Conforto got one guy out, in a big spot. I think it was against the Braves or something.
Yeah.
And these guys can't throw to the plate. They can't throw to the infield. They're overthrowing. I mean, the third base coach is taking advantage of these guys. I think that those three guys are, the biggest ones to move, including JD Davis.
That's a very interesting point because it just everyone's a weird fit. I mean, you have so many guys that are playing out of position, and when you have that many guys playing out of position, it just leads to bad things. And if guys like Dom Smith's bat isn't making up for it, and Jeff McNeil struggled this year, and then JD Davis, like we've seen big spots, bases loaded, and he's swinging at stuff right down the middle and not making contact. So JD Davis has just been such a weird year from him. Like he has these big moments where he doesn't capitalize. So for everybody, they might have to be moved. I think this is going to be one of the more interesting off seasons because you got to decide, like, listen, we gave this core a chance, but if Cohen does intend to win, they might have to make some changes if they really want to have that happen. So let's go back to another offseason acquisition, but this time on the pitching side, Trevor May. He gave up a really big home run on Saturday night. He's given up a good amount of long balls this year. And then on Tuesday, the Mets decided to go to Jeurys Familia over Trevor May, even though Familia gave a big home run over the weekend too. Familia couldn't get it done, but Trevor May comes in anyway and then cleans up Familia's mess. So, Anthony, let me start with you because, again, a fresh take on this. Are you disappointed in Trevor May's first year? Because this was a guy that's supposed to be brought in to help out a bullpen that needed help because we've seen for the past few years, Mets have had a lot of games go the wrong way because of the pen. So what have you thought about Trevor May this year?
Disappointed. I don't know if I'm disappointed. Relievers, every year they're different. I mean, they'll have one really good year. Maybe next year he'll be, 1.93 ERA and he'll be great. This year he's been awful. It changes every year. I'm actually more confused by his season. I mean, he'll have a good stretch of 10 games and then the next 10 games, he's giving up game-winning home runs and like here and there. It's been just so confusing watching him pitch. I think the most out of everyone in the bullpen because he's been healthy all year. And he's like struggling and like he's profusely sweating. I'm worried about if he's hydrating. And it's just been a confusing season watching him pitch out of the bullpen. We all know what we were going to get with Jeurys Familia. Any positive is great. Seth Lugo obviously coming back from his arm injury and the surgery. Edwin Diaz is Edwin Diaz. I mean, but May, since we haven't seen him, it's just like a little confusing to me, just on and off. It's just on and off with him.
Yeah, I want to go to you, Metsfan, because we've talked a lot about this. And like Trevor May, he has good stuff, but his pitch sequencing just seems very odd. It's like, you know what? I'm going to throw a high fastball and hopefully they miss it. And like there isn't just many other possibilities out there for him. So what are the analytics telling you about the way Trevor May's pitched this year? And how does that compare to his days in Minnesota? I mean, should we be disappointed? Or there's this just who Trevor May is?
I mean, I'm not disappointed, and I say that on behalf of his reputation. He doesn't have many weaknesses. He's got great command. He's got great control, high-profile stuff. He's capable of being a great reliever, but like his decision-making, like Anthony said, I mean, it's confusing, very, very confusing. I don't know if it's the pitch calling from the catcher. I don't know if it's his confidence in certain pitches, but he just never seems to find a way to be that unpredictable reliever with multiple weapons, because he does have multiple weapons. And he just does not realize that chucking fastballs over and over and over again in the top part of the strike zone is going to be caught on by major league hitters. Again, I don't know if it is him. It might be Rojas or Mccann. I would be shocked because I've never had a problem with either of them. But May's IQ just scares me sometimes. I just don't know where he's going.
Yeah, it is just very odd because, like the home run gave up to Aaron Judge, you would think, oh, well, Judge is a guy, maybe we'll throw a slider in the dirt, maybe Judge will fish at, but you throw Judge a high fastball over the plate, and Judge could do what he did. I mean, hit a bomb. So, Hayden, what have you thought about Trevor May this season?
Yeah, Trevor May's been really confusing. I'm going to agree on that train. Pretty much it kind of sucks to see Trevor May kind of lose the setup man spot. And I'm sure we'll get into that later in the stream of really what went down there. But, I mean, it is defense. It's Aaron Judge. Obviously, Trevor May's fastball maybe wasn't as meat. I guess we'll refer to it at that against the Yankees. Well, you're talking about a Yankees lineup that really relies on home runs and power. Otherwise, I think he's been about okay. Nothing super crazy. He's been getting barreled quite a bit. But the velocity's there. The strikeouts are there. Just, sometimes he gets the walk issue and gives up some barrels. But otherwise not super crazy with them. And, like Anthony pointed out, relievers are, very tricky and ambiguous, honestly, in terms of, variations by year. So, hopefully next year he's on a 2-year deal, correct?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. 2-year deal. All right. So hopefully next year he could be worth something, and maybe that'll, a free agent year will hopefully put some thought into his head, or maybe he needs to stop taking naps. Maybe he's not fully awake during the games.
Yeah, I think, this is supposed to be Jeremy Hefner's guy, so I think that in this offseason, they have to at least experiment with another pitch or two. You have got to change the analytic book on Trevor May, because the hitters, they have their approach. They say, okay, Trevor May, he's going to throw his high fastballs. Let's be ready. But if all of a sudden Trevor May starts throwing a slider or a sinker or a splitter, it's just something different, and they say, oh, well, watch out for the splitter, watch out for the changeup or whatever, then it makes them game plan a little different, and maybe he'll have more success. What bothers me about Trevor May, like you said, Anthony, he will have stretches where he'll go a week, 2 weeks, lights out, doesn't go for running. Like, oh, wow, Trevor May's rolling. But then in a big game, like the Yankee game, boom, home run, you lose. And it just comes out of nowhere. So that's what scares me. Like, Trevor May could go on a hot streak, but I never know when he's going to blow. When he blows it, it's done. There's not like, oh, at least he got out of it. Like, when Trevor May goes for a home run, there's no other way around it. It wasn't like it was – they don't string 3 hits in a row of Trevor May. It's just that one big swing that crushes the Mets in a close game, because late in games, one big swing could be the deciding factor in a win or loss. So let's go to a question. I think this probably be the most interesting question. So Steve Cohen hands you a check. That check is for $200 million, and you have a choice. Do I give it to Michael Conforto, or do I give it to Javier Baez? So let me start with you, Anthony. If you had the choice, you're going to bring back one, because I think we're all in agreement we'd like to bring back Marcus Stroman with the way pitching is, with the way the pitching market is. So we got Stroman back. We only have so much money left to really move around. We have Cano coming back. We still may want to do other things. So we can only have one of Baez or Conforto. Which one would you want to give that $200 million contract?
Yeah, in the offseason, I was all for giving Michael Conforto that big deal. He's been a homer his whole career. We know who he is. I thought that they should have gave him a contract over Lindor at the time, because, there was a whole bunch of shortstops waiting in the offseason and not too many outfielders. So I thought Conforto was the right guy to do it, and keeping your homegrown guys is, I think, very important. But seeing this whole season, and we all know that Michael Conforto is hot or cold all year. He could go have a big hot streak, and then he'll go cold for a while. I'm going to go Javier Baez, because I want to see something different, and there's a little bit of a swagger growing with, him and Lindor and VR, and to a certain extent Edwin Diaz, because, they're all in the same club. But I look at some of the big hits Baez has had over the last couple of weeks. He's had some big hits for this team. No one else has, besides maybe Pete Alonso. Javier Baez, I feel like, is the only one that's been, showing up after he got booed, and the whole comment with the thumbs down. He's still come to play, and he plays hard every day. He runs hard every day, except for that, maybe that home run on Monday to tie the game, where he kind of was dogging it and thought it was definitely out, and it kind of came close. But I got to go Baez on this. And, he's played well in the World Series, a couple playoff appearances with the Cubs. I think Baez might be the way to go.
Wow, that's a very interesting response. What about you, Hayden? Which guy would you want to retain if you could only have one?
Yeah, to be honest with you, I am going to apologize to Javier Baez. I'm an idiot. I don't know anything about baseball. Javier Baez, you keep rocking. You keep doing you. Obviously, we all know how a lot of people, including myself, really felt about Baez when he was coming to the Mets in his first week or two. Personally, I'm giving it to Javier Baez. Simply enough, with Michael Conforto, everyone's talking, oh, it's a contract year. He's nervous under pressure. Oh, yeah, in the World Series and in the All-Star game, I'm sure you are too. Simply enough, we know he's a Scott Boras client, so Scott Boras is going to really be a pain in the behind for the Mets front office this offseason. I'm glad we didn't extend him this past offseason. Maybe if we did, would he be looking different? Would he be looking the same? If we did and he was looking like this, I think it would be even more worse because you have Lindor and Conforto on the same book. Honestly, I think Anthony and I kind of agreed on that. In my past videos, I even stated we should have waited for a shortstop. I wanted more outfield depth, which is kind of lacking on the Mets, including in the farm system too. Shortstops, you were packed this free agency. I mean, Correa, Story, Lindor, and then you had Baez too. It's packed. Overall, with Michael Conforto, I'm just not seeing it out of him. I'm not giving a dude $200 million when he's not going the opposite way, and he's hitting for this slash line. I can't do that. If Conforto maybe was showing Conforto had a month of his 2020 self or 2019 self, maybe I would say, okay, we'll see. But I mean, we're talking about a series, and that was it. So it sucks. Javier Baez, I think, is a guy who looks great. He brings to this team so much. He brings speed, athleticism, great morale, energy, hype, all that great stuff. He will hit for power. There, I'll say it. He'll hit for power. Not like Pete Alonso. Pete Alonso will always be much more powerful than him, 100%. But he'll hit for power. He'll drive in RBIs. He'll steal base, something the Mets did not really do before the trade deadline. Overall, he is maybe around a nice key athlete that I think the Mets are definitely going to want to keep around. He has playoff experience, which was stated before. I think Baez is the guy to go. It just comes down to, put him at second, and then that messes up Mcneil, and that causes a whole chemistry thing. So that's my only concern, but that's not my problem. Conforto's getting the qualifying offer. I'm sure there's going to be some team out there that's willing to give him what he wants. But like I said, that's not the Mets' issue. Hopefully, he takes the home discount, gets the qualifying offer, and shows himself in 2022 who he could actually be. But then it'll be another pressure situation, so he'll underperform.
All right, Mets fan, you've been the guy that has defended Conforto all season long, never wavering, never giving up. But you could only have one. So who would be the one?
Fuck.
Jason Bay.
I think if it's the $200 million, it's going to Baez, and it's so hard to say because I think Conforto does belong here, and I do think that Conforto should be able to get another chance to prove that he is worth the $200 million that I believe he's worth at the end of the day. Not in this kind of a trend that he's in right now, but I'll say Baez, and I say that because I do expect them to give Conforto a qualifying offer, and I do expect him to reject it. But I do see them working out some kind of 2-year deal with a player option for the 2-year, the second year. So if he has a good season, he can test free agency. But it's going to Baez. If it's $200 million, it's going to Baez. He has pretty much brought his stock up, especially with the impact. I don't know if the impact looks even better with the rest of the team playing like shit, but like he's really just shown so many different ways to win baseball games, and he's going to get paid this offseason, whether it's here or somewhere else.
Yeah, that's the part that's really weird, is because we talk so much about the shortstop market, and Javi Baez is part of that. And let me bring up 2 more names for that shortstop market: Corey Seager, and then the shortstop that nobody's talking about but might be having the best year of the bunch, Marcus Simeon. I mean, this guy has almost.
Blue Jays are going to.
I thought the Blue Jays were going to bring back Taijuan Walker.
But a lot of these guys,
he is a primary shortstop. He moved to second because they had Shea. All in Oakland, Mets fan can vouch, he was the shortstop. And
he was.
MVP finalist at shortstop. And his WAR is good. All the metrics are good. He was Gold Glove finalist at shortstop. So that's his primary position. But maybe he'll move to second base for another team. I don't know. But I think he's going to want to play short. So now it's like you have only so many bidders in on all these possible guys. So could that bring down Baez's price if you're only bidding against yourself, and there's no one else that could give Baez a crazy amount of money? Could that work in your favor compared to that outfield market we talk about that is very thin? You have Nick Castellanos, then the rest of the guys are a center fielder like Starling Marte or guys like that. Like, you don't have those really good
Mccann, that's
corner.
how much it drops.
Mccann, and he's not getting. I don't think he's
Yeah.
gonna get 100 million. You know what I mean? Marquette's a nice player, but I don't think he's getting even 100 million.
Mm.
So it's a very different market for Michael Conforto, which could play in his advantage. And I think that, like, we talk about the homegrown guy, that's the part that bothers me about Conforto. Like, that's why I do want to bring him back, because last year the team did refer to him as the team captain. We talk about Javi Baez's playoff experience. Michael Conforto had been in playoffs once, and he had a lot of big moments, particularly the World Series game where he had 2 home runs and was the only offense the Mets got that whole game. They almost won it too. So Conforto can perform in high pressure. So that's why it's hard for me to buy that. You know what? Like, he hasn't performed because he's on a contract year. Javier Baez on a contract year too, and Conforto has done well in. I mean, playoffs in the World Series, as much pressure as possible. And as a rookie, Conforto succeeded there. So I just don't understand what's going on this year. But I do think that the day in, day out stress that Conforto's had to deal with the whole season of that contract, I think that's what's weighing down him. And he knows that if I mess up, my value goes down. Whereas in the World Series, like, I'm a rookie, I'm having fun, I'm just trying to make a name for myself. There wasn't as much pressure on him. So it is a weird thing. But if I had to keep one, it's really unfortunate, because if, like, let's say neither guy, this is the first year both guys were with the Mets, I would say Baez, because, like we said, Baez does more things. But I think just that homegrown aspect is really tough. I'll give Conforto the qualifying offer and go from there. But Baez has just done a lot to help this team. And the thing that goes against Baez's favor is that position. And we talked about, what do you do with Jeff Mcneill? What do you do with Brett Beatty, with Mark Vientos, with Ronnie Mauricio? So, again, we talk about the fit of outfield versus infield. All the Mets have is Khalil Lee. You hope he could be their center fielder, but you don't know that. They played him in right field when he was on the Major League roster. So I just think that the position is what is favoring Conforto, but Baez is the better player. So, I mean, I would lean Javier Baez, because that game in Miami where Baez had a few hits, he stole bases, he was the only guy that kept the Mets in that game. The other night, two nights ago, where Baez tied the game 9th inning, he was the guy that kept the Mets in the game. Like, he could single-handedly win you a game. And Michael Conforto, he hasn't done that this year. He's had a couple big hits throughout the year, but he's not going to do so many things in the game, whether it's hitting, speed, and defense, in one game to win you the game. What do you think, Anthony?
Conforto is the best of the outfielders, but I really feel like that's not. I have not been impressed by his defense too much the last couple of seasons. I think it's been off. And you mentioned him about, him being kind of like them naming him the de facto captain. This year, where has he been? I mean, he's not in the Zoom calls. I know they can only do a few people, but Pete Alonso has had to take the brunt of that. Lindor has had to take the brunt of that. Baez, who's been here for a hot minute. Where has Conforto been? Like, he kind of just, with his hitting, he just kind of disappeared. And, if you're going to be the captain, a la David Wright, who day in and day out for 2009 all the way to 2013 was the guy they went to every single day to talk to in the locker room after every brutal loss. I mean, I can't consider him any type of captain after what I've seen this season. And it's not just the hitting. He's just fell off. Like, if he's going to lead, he's got to lead. And look at, the team has just floundered away.
You're talking about
Conforto.
Okay.
I think that if I had to guess, I'm guessing he's more of a quiet leader, because Conforto is not really a rah-rah guy. He's not a guy you see yelling, going crazy. So I'm thinking that he was more of a quiet leader. But I mean, it is what they said in 2020. Like, when they had to make that decision with the Marlins, whether to play that game or not under protest, Conforto was the guy representing the Mets, and Miguel Ross was the guy representing the Marlins. So they said he was, but I think Alonso has changed that. And I think Francisco Lindor has really changed that, because I think the reason why they had Conforto as the captain, so to speak, was because he was the longest tenured Met at the time, other than Noah Syndergaard. But as far as position players, him, and then you have Jerry Smith, again, another relief pitcher. Relief pitcher is not your captain for any team. So I think he was kind of the captain. But like you said, Alonso's just got so much more attention. It feels like he now is kind of the captain.
Yeah, I just don't. I don't buy into this quiet captain. Like, look how long that's gone on for, and it hasn't worked. Captains like Keith Hernandez, I'm going back to this, but Keith Hernandez, Gary Carter, those guys were outspoken. John Franco, I guess. I mean, he was a reliever, but I guess just because he was the longest tenured Met, he was the captain of the team. But right, he wasn't the biggest rah-rah guy, but he was there to answer questions and put the media on his back because a lot of other guys didn't want to talk. They always went to him, and he had to take the brunt of all the problems. Like Conforto's got to step up in some form, whether it's him playing well or him, taking care of the media after the games. He's got to do something.
For sure. And especially if he gets a $200 million contract, like you're going to have to be asking questions. You can't be nowhere to be found during the Zoom call. And I think the other thing that's going to be really interesting in the whole process of who to bring back is with Michael Ford, there's a guy that was drafted by Sandy Alderson, and Sandy has seen plenty of his picks not stay with the team, and not his fault. Rivera got rid of a lot of Sandy's guys. So I think that Sandy is going to try to keep Michael Porto for that aspect of it. And then with Javi Baez, I think as far as like press and media and fans in particular are going to say, oh, you traded away Pete Crow Armstrong for a rental, a guy you didn't even re-sign. That's all we heard when they made the trade. So if they don't re-sign Baez, that's all we're going to hear. So do the Mets want to deal with that? I think, in my opinion, this is just me. I think the main reason why the New York Mets re-signed Francisco Lindor in spring training and did that crazy deal was that they did not have to hear from the media and the fans all year long. Oh, is Lindor going to accept the deal? Oh, you trade away Jimenez for a rental. Like, they will have done that the entire season.
And they're hearing from it now anyway.
They're hearing from it now anyway, but it's not, they're going to say, oh, lol, Mets. Oh, it's like, it was kind of a damn they do, damn they don't. Yep. You sign Lindor, oh, he's here forever, oh, he's no good. You didn't sign him, oh, you trade for a rental. Like, you have to learn in New York, there is no way to win. The only way you win is to win the damn games. Other than that, there's no winning with the press. And you look at what happened today with Steve Cohen calling out sources and just like going off on Twitter. It's like, what in the world is going on here? But maybe we'll save that for later. Let's continue with what we have. And just again about the future of the team, Jeff Mcneil, we talked about him a little bit, but now when you are going into this offseason, can you say for certain, all right, well, you know what? We have Alonso, we have Lindor, we have Nimmo. Is Jeff Mcneil one of those guys like, okay, we know we have a starter, whether it's at second, third, or left field, or is he someone that's like, we can't guarantee him a spot? If there's a great trade, we take it. Or is he someone looking to upgrade from? Hayden, is Jeff Mcneil a one-year wonder? Or is he a guy you want to keep long term? Hey, good? Yeah, nice. You, Hayden.
All right. Yeah, Jeff Mcneil is a guy that I was very disappointed with this season. I was really hoping that he could be his 2019 self again. We pretty much saw in 2019, he pretty much got like hit with the ball, like some surgery with his rotator cuff or something in the offseason. And then kind of since then, he's been whatever, I guess. I mean, I don't really care about 2020. I care about a full season, not a Mickey Mouse season. McNeil's been really interesting this season. At first he's went through like 10 different phases of not being able to put the ball in the air to like a line drive type of guy to a line drive into the second baseman and the shift to a pop fly guy. He's had so many different phases this season. Strikeout phase, throwing his helmet. He has a lot of anger stuff, which I think he really needs to chill with that because I think he's really a guy, Steven Matz, that really gets over himself. He really gets upset with himself, and that really affects him emotionally. I think he really needs to work on that because we see him after he grounds out, takes his helmet and hits it. I mean, like I do. Like he takes his helmet and hits it against, the ground like I do with my hat in my desk. And it doesn't work. It just makes things worse. So I'm really hoping Mcneil could really start to get better. Obviously, I was glad to hear that he would be coming back at second base. I liked him at second base. We know he sees the ball come off the bat better at second base. That's his natural position. And then Javier Baez pretty much said, nope, no, you don't. And honestly, I don't blame Baez for that. Mcneil hasn't been playing up to standard, so I think that's the best thing for it. I really hope Jeff Mcneil could still be on this team. I just could imagine us trading him away to, I don't know, any team that needs him, and he could just become a hitter like that. He's a guy who's going to hit for a high average. He's not going to hit for power, and he's not going to hit for power. I'll say that, make that clear. He's not a power hitter. 2019, he showed to an extent somewhere. He knocked like 25 home runs. But he's a guy who won't really, hit for power, but he'll be a guy who – sorry about that. He will be a guy that will. Sorry. He'll be a guy that will pretty much hit the ball and play, whether it's a BABIP, knock one the other way. He'll be a guy who pretty much just get the ball and play.
What about you, Metsfan? Is the world actually against Jeff McNeil? Does the Baseball Savant page back that up where Jeff is hitting into some hard luck and he should be throwing the helmet and just cursing up a storm? Or is Jeff actually struggling this year and the Mets can't guarantee him a spot?
It's been such a weird season for him, so I can't really tell, to be honest. And the fact that I had to put this question in, it makes me very sick, to be honest. Of course, Mcneill has not been himself this year. We all know that. But I said this on Twitter the other day too. I mean, proven players like Jeff McNeil, they have down years. It's very common, especially with the strange year he's had with the injury and the whole in and out of the lineup, changing positions when he was promised second base. And then he was all over the place. He's a great player and he's a big part of this team, with the huge, swing and miss rate that keeps going up in baseball every single year. You don't let players like Jeff McNeil just up and leave after a tough season. And I believe me when I say this, getting rid of Jeff McNeil would be a huge mistake with how valuable he is to this team.
Yep. What about you, Anthony? You're talking a little bit about guys that could be expendable. You included Jeff McNeil on that, list of guys, but do you think he is someone that it's like, do we keep him for the future, or can we actually look at some trades for him?
I think out of the three guys that I mentioned, him, Davis, and Dom Smith, I think he might be the most valuable one to hold on to if you're going to hold on to any of them. The problem is, and we just talked about re-signing Javi Baez. If Javi Baez comes here to play second base, not only is that a problem, but you have that looming question of what's going to happen with Robinson Cano. We don't know if they're going to outright release him, if he's going to stay here and play. If the DH comes, is he going to be a hitter? We don't know what's going to happen. And I think all of those questions will be answered once we find out what happens with Cano. And I mean, Mcneil is a great hitter. I know, like you said, he had a rough year this season. We also need someone to play defense. And what position has he really shined in to, warrant, I guess, everyday playing time?
His outs above average at second are good. He makes the routine plays, but I mean, he's not. I don't think he's Javi Baez at second base, but that would be his best position. But like you said,
Right.
that's kind of like the Dom Smith situation where that position is not available for you. Like Dom should be at first, he can't have first, and Jeff can't have second if Cano and or Baez, and or somebody else like second base.
Yeah. Left field is basically him in left field is basically a gold mine compared to Dom Smith and JD Davis. So it's it's okay. It's kind of a secondary position for him. Third base, he has the somewhat range, but his arm's not very strong. It's accurate. It's just not strong enough to play third base. Left field, you put the weakest outfield arm pretty much in left field these days. So it's okay. I'm okay with that. But it does come into question considering he was coming into this season, he's at second base. So it's very confusing.
Well, is also the issue with him playing second base, because him and Lindor, they just didn't mesh well. Is it because of the overshifting that was happening on this team and not letting them? I mean, Mcneil wasn't this bad playing second base, and Lindor is an all-star shortstop. They should be making easy plays right now. And I think that there's been just too much shifting. Every play, every, at bat, they're moving to the left, moving to the right, leaving this spot open. And I think at this point, every team has the Mets playbook because the Mets playbook is the same every game. They just follow the same script every game. Luis Rojas, same thing every single day. Lefty righty hitters against lefty righty. I mean, what is happening with baseball now? Everything is scripted. It's, and these guys, Lindor mentioned it at the beginning of the season. He doesn't like overshifting, and they did that.
Another reason to fire Gary DiSarcina. I mean, that's what it comes down to. He's the guy in charge of the defensive positioning. So, I mean,
he's in charge of that as well, because
he does that as well.
His third base running is awful.
Well, yeah, so he does all the things he's assigned to do. He does nothing well. What do you want to say, Hayden?
No, I was going to say another thing, and I don't believe this is one of our topics tonight, but I think Mcneill's a little upset with the team. And I mean, we really looked at this whole raccoon nonsense thing. Let's be realistic. They got into a fight in the dugout. I mean, they weren't baking cupcakes and singing songs together. They were having an altercation. And then, it doesn't really look good for Francisco Lindor to come in and say, oh, I want Baez playing next to me, my BFF. And then you throw out away Mcneill. How do and if we're talking about a guy who can't stand pressure, who gets upset, what do you think that's going to do to Mcneill's confidence and morale? So, that could be a reason where I think Mcneill could potentially depart. Just be not even so much where they put him, but I think Mcneill could be upset with this team.
I gotta say that I don't blame Lindor for that. I blame the front office, because the front office year in and year out puts players out of position every time, and they'll load up on like second basemen or shortstops, or they'll throw third baseman in left field. Like Brett Beatty and Vientos, they're not going to be third basemen, because I'm pretty sure one's going to be thrown out in left, someone's going to be thrown out right. What's going to happen with Ronnie Mauricio too? He's not going to play shortstop. He's going to play second base. Where are you going to put him? You're going to put him at third. You're going to put him left field, center field. I mean, we almost had Ahmed Rosario in center field, and he's a shortstop.
Yeah, and you're right. I mean, and they've done that, like you said, year in, year out. And it just comes down to this whole DH. Like, the DH is going to be probably the biggest domino. And it's not even like you usually say, oh, when this player makes a decision, that's going to be the domino effect. It's literally going to come down to, if there is a DH, we have more spots open. If not, someone has to go, especially with the whole Robinson Cano thing. So, and who knows what this whole collective bargaining agreement is going to come down to. I mean, maybe there's a strike or whatever. So we may not know until the end of the offseason. It won't surprise me if when the year actually does start, then they decide it's a DH. But the whole offseason, they didn't make a decision yet. So the Mets are in a tough spot not knowing what to do. But if it's me with Jeff McNeil, this guy came up and was hitting, and he did the same thing in 2019 the whole year, did the same thing in 2020. And I think what's come down to with Jeff now is that because he's had a bad year, the mental makeup, we talk about the frustration, it is building up. There wasn't that bad that Jeff McNeil had this week where he had a foul ball and he already looked like he was going to break something mid-at-bat. There is no way that after having that much built-up emotion, you're going to stay focused in that same AB and put a good swing on the ball. He had a good game last night, but I don't know what the deal is with McNeil. I think that it's come down to just the point now where he's mentally drained and he's pressing so bad that we just can't get the Jeff McNeil that we know. And I think that having all of, once the year is over, let him get going in spring training. If he has a hot stretch of spring training, I think he can carry on that. The injury definitely hurt right in the middle of the year. The new shifting a lot, playing different positions, that hurt. So I just think, like we said, the whole mental makeup. And I want to keep Jeff McNeil. But if Jeff McNeil doesn't want to stay on the team, like we said, for all the reasons, then I would trade him. If I don't want a guy who doesn't want to be here. Even though Jeff McNeil is my favorite player, if he doesn't want to be here, it's not the right thing for me to keep a guy that just doesn't want to be here. We talk so much about, can't trade guys because of chemistry. If Jeff is unhappy, he doesn't like the position he's playing. I mean, he batted eighth last night. No one wants to bat eighth. I mean, that's just like the ultimate, you suck, you're the worst on the team, you're batting eighth. Whereas you can make the case that Jeff McNeil at his best is your best hitter. So I think that just that whole, again, the mental aspect and the way he has his mental makeup is such a weird mix. So I wouldn't do it just yet. I'd give Jeff McNeil one more year, even if it's as a utility guy. I wouldn't bank a starting spot, though, because if this happens again and you don't get anybody, you're in trouble. So I would have him as utility guy, some days at second, some days at left, maybe some days at right field. And in spring training, try third base, try to get him comfortable there. Because what's weird is that, like, his arm isn't strong at third, but it's strong in the outfield, kind of. So I don't know how that whole matches up together with the muscle memory and things like that. So I'm not ready to give him yet. I would hang on to him. So the next guy,
cycle.
What's up?
I was gonna say he was a homer shy of the cycle last night.
He wasn't. Yeah, he had a really good game. But we talk like with Lindor with consistency. Is he going to do it in this Philadelphia series, this massive series of Philadelphia? I sure hope so. And Jeff McNeil needs it. And we talk so much about run scoring position, one of the Mets' main problems, main reason why they have struggled offensively. I think Jeff McNeil is probably their worst hitter at runners in scoring position, if I'm not mistaken. So he has not helped in that scenario. He got one big hit all year that I can remember. It was that game that they made the big comeback. I think it was the Miami game, if I'm not mistaken. But there was one game that Jamil got a big hit. Other than that, late in the games, he has not gotten that big hit that decides the game. So that's been unfortunate. Yeah, maybe there was one in Milwaukee, but
against the Brewers, he had the walk-off.
Is that where he hit against Milwaukee? All right, so there you go. That's his big hit. But, I mean, in a long season, you would like more than one or two moments, and it just far too often he doesn't come through. But the next guy is Seth Lugo. We talked a little bit about him earlier with the whole elbow surgery. And he just is not the same guy. I mean, Seth Lugo has still been pretty good this year, but not the best version of Seth Lugo. Not necessarily the lockdown setup man to Edwin Diaz or potential closer. If Edwin is struggling, like, okay, we go with Seth Lugo like the way they did in 2019. So, Anthony, are you concerned about Lugo at all, or do you think that maybe just his elbow surgery was a one-year kind of wash?
I'm going to wash it. I think it is the elbow surgery because he's had that chip in his elbow for a couple of seasons, and he didn't want to do anything with it. And then now he decided that he wanted to, have a surgery on it, which he probably should have did last season. And he took some wear and tear from going from the bullpen to starting. So I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt and have him come back next season. But next season, I don't want to hear about, well, he can't come in, for the entire week because he pitched 7 pitches on Sunday or so. That's all that stuff that's happened this year where this guy needs this much rest and that guy needs that much rest. Well, guess what? They're going to get a lot of rest in 2 weeks because the season's going to be over. So, get all your rest out now and come ready to play. And you better have the stamina for 162 games. Otherwise, if he can't do that this year, then I'm going to have to let him go or go a different direction.
Yeah, no, that's a very fair take. What about you, Mets fan? Are you concerned about Lugo at all, or do you think he'll be all right?
Yeah, I mean, I think going off of Anthony, I mean, he's recovering from a very serious surgery, and it doesn't really heal in the matter of a 1-year span fully. His stuff is still there. I mean, his curveball is still nasty and spinny as it always is. But the injury has definitely slowed him down, and it shows. And I think that's the main reason why he's not going multiple innings anymore like he usually did. But he has enough weapons to figure it out. I think he'll be back next season. I think he'll be better. I think this is probably the worst possible way you can see Seth Lugo. I think he'll be fine.
Yeah, his velocity has taken the dip, and sometimes he loses command, which he very rarely did at his best. I mean, there would just be days where Lugo is just behind in the count the whole outing, and you never saw that from him. What about you, Hayden? Is Seth Lugo not good because of that spider attack anymore? Or, I mean, could he still be a good pitcher?
Well, listen, Seth Lugo, he's still in the 100th percentile in that curve spin, so we'll have to hold on to that. Obviously, he has been a guy who has had some injury issues, and we were talking about it last stream with Jacob deGrom. Well, in 2017, Seth Lugo had a partially torn UCL, and I feel ever since then he's kind of been really questionable. I mean, we were pointing out his health. We know pretty much Rojas and a lot of the Mets people on this team, the coaching staff pretty much says, oh, Lugo throws 20 pitches in an outing. Oh, you're off for the week. Sorry, dude. That's kind of been it. And I think, we're going into September. If this was May, April, I'd say, okay, sure. But, you're going into September where you're trying to compete. Well, you're going to have to start using a bit more. I think he is nasty when healthy. I think partially he is coming off a very tough injury. I mean, loose bodies, that's something very serious. And I was honestly surprised that he kind of came, what was it, like May or June he arrived. I was really surprised. I thought he wouldn't really even come back potentially at all this year, if not around now. But I think he has like a 5 to 4 picks Mitch. So that's really effective for bullpen pitchers because you don't see many guys, have more than 2 pitches, really. Typically, bullpen pitchers, they have a fastball and then maybe a slider or a fastball and a sinker, where, I mean, Lugo really has it all, partially because he is at times a starter. But obviously, he is now a bullpen man, more of a setup man, how he was in 2019. 2020, you pretty much threw him all over. And, Now, for the most part, he hasn't started at all this season. He hasn't started a game at all this season, has he, right? So that's good. So, he's been solid. I'm hoping next year he could really start to get healthy. He'll have the offseason to rest. He'll come into spring training, and hopefully healthy and ready to go.
Yeah, I'm also going to stick with Lugo because I have seen some matches where he does look really good. So similar to Lindor, the talent is there. It all comes down to the consistency, and I just hope that if he gets all the rest he needs, even if he needs a really light workload in spring training, if that means getting his velo back, if that means getting his command back, I think that's worth it because Seth Lugo at his best could be so valuable to a team. We know how important bullpens are, especially for the Mets. So I want to be as careful as I can. And if the Mets get out of it, maybe I even shut him down. I don't even want to risk losing him, for 2 months next season, and again have to start his year in June. I just don't even think that's worth it. So, and the surgery that he had, it didn't even help the torn UCL. Like he still has that. So that was just a bone spur and loose bias thing he had in the elbow. So he's always going to have to deal with that. And I think he will be okay. But let's go to a very interesting topic because there was this whole article talking about what Steve Cohen's mindset. Does he want to bring back Sandy Alderson? Does he want to bring back the OFC? Sandy Alderson maybe wants to keep Luis Rojas, but Steve Cohen wasn't opposed to the idea of bringing in Carlos Beltran. So, Hayden, let me start with you. Should the Mets consider having Carlos Beltran as their next manager?
Yeah, Beltran. I think everyone knows Carlos Beltran by now, whether from his player time to his 60-game manager stretch where he had he had 0 losses. So I think he's awesome for that. But yeah, Carlos Beltran personally, a lot of people have the concern of, a young rookie manager. But then you also have the pro of that he played. He was a major league player. He was on this team, and he was on this team when we were in the playoffs. It's Game 7 of the 2006 NLCS. Yeah, sure, I make all the jokes you want about that. But the point is, he knows what it's like to be in the player's shoes. He knows what it's like to be in a playoff game. It could definitely be a little worrisome that he is a rookie manager, so some mistakes he may not know. But you know what? It's not a Bobby Valentine type of manager anymore. The managers, they get everything from the analytical department, and then they speak with Hefner, and then they speak with Quattlebaum. Rojas, a lot of people give Rojas a bad rap, and I agree. And I think that's more the bullpen decisions he makes. But a lot of this comes from, the analytical stuff that this team claims to be analytically driven. We've been seeing some parts of this year, not as much as they claim. But I think Beltran is honestly the best shot I think you have because you don't really have many guys. Showalter.
They are not analytically dribbled.
Beltran, and then I'm sure there's some names, but there's anyone that majorly stands out. As Frank stated, Sandy Alderson, he pretty much put out today saying that now that he's coming back, he would like to keep Luis Rojas in the role that he is. And that comes to the question: is Sandy Alderson? Is he still, he's going to be the president of operations? So if you demote him, then he doesn't have the power of what to do with Rojas. So maybe we'll just have to do that. Now overall, I'm pretty fond of Carlos Beltran. I think he could have some good stuff for this team. Young rookie manager, he could relate to the players. He's been in playoff experiences. He knows what it's like to be in the players' cleats.
Yep, exactly. Because Rojas, even though Rojas has been in baseball a long time, he does not have that playing on the major league level in the postseason and especially playing as a New York Met. And I think that Beltran would not be as, oh my God, lefty's on the face of lefty, especially since he was a switch hitter.
And I know all the Astros nonsense is past. Cora has a job. Hinch has a job.
Yep.
Give Beltran a job.
What about you, Anthony? Would you consider bringing back Carlos Beltran, or would you like to look elsewhere and maybe try to avoid bringing Beltran back in?
I championed for him the first time to come in, especially if they weren't going to go the veteran route and they were going to go with a new guy, because the list of new guys was Beltran, Luis Rojas, some guy from Minnesota that I never heard of, and some guy from Pittsburgh. And if that's the case, you got to go with Beltran. I was disappointed, very disappointed, and felt really mad at him for the whole situation that got him fired. But like it was mentioned, Hinch is back. Cora's back. Why isn't Beltran getting the opportunity that he deserved? And I don't even think he was a major player in that. I think he got outed and they put it all on him. But I don't really think it was him. I thought Cora more so than him. Hinch was oblivious, and the players kind of ran the show. So I if you're going to go with a new manager, I guess go with Beltran, but does it really matter if we're going to see this kind of same analytics that we've been seeing? Is he going to do Louis Rojas 2.0, or is he going to get to be able to put his feel and his stamp on this team? And with Louis Rojas returning, what Sandy Alden said, I think he really just said that because we're just trying to finish out the season, and he's trying to be respectful to Louis Rojas, who, although says some of the dumbest answers, he's kind of been even-keeled, respectful during every press conference, and has answered, every question that has been asked of him. They've been generic answers and robotic answers, but he's kind of done that. So I don't mind them giving him the respect to go the end of the season. I mean, they've done it so far, so might as well finish it off. This organization had, fired Willie Randolph, who had one of the, best records as a manager in the middle of the night. I wouldn't want that. I wouldn't wish that on anyone. So I do think Louis Rojas goes, because if we can remember at the beginning of the offseason, when Steve Cohen took over, it was maybe the first day of free agency. So he didn't have a time to, really dig deep and get the, president of baseball operations. No one was available. And the ones that he wanted to talk to, they weren't allowing him to talk to. So then he had to go to a general manager. And that guy ended up getting fired like a month in. So then he had to go to a backup, an assistant, and then had to navigate getting players in here as well at the same time. This team wasn't properly put together from the beginning of the front office on down. So I think this offseason, we're going to get a better chance at seeing what's going to happen. And if they're getting a president of baseball operations, he's going to pick his manager, and he's going to pick that whole staff together. So I don't see Louis Rojas returning whatsoever.
What about you, Mets fan? Is Beltran someone of intrigue to you, or not really?
I originally would say that I would bring him back, and I just because of the player connection that he has, and he's been a player before, and he'd relate to these players very well. But with the damage that has been done with Luis Rojas, the mentality, this loser mentality that he's brought in, this new fashion type of we'll get him next time, I kind of want to get somebody in with a lot more managing experience. I mean, we've obviously said guys like Ron Renicky. We've said people like Wally Backman. We've talked about Edgardo Alfonso. We've talked about Lou Piniella as well. I think some of these players need to be held accountable at this point. You haven't seen that at all this year. And I think it's very weird. I mean, and this is all just like, we don't know what Sandy meant with bringing back Rojas or not. Again, he does a lot of things behind closed doors. So we just don't know. But I would prefer to have somebody with more experience as a manager, and then maybe branch out to maybe have Carlos Beltran as the bench coach, or have something, have him as like a kind of a high advisor there. But it's just with the damage that Luis Rojas has done, and the fact of how unpredictable it is with Beltran, because we haven't seen him manage a single game, not even a preseason game. It's not a risk I'd like to take right now. And I don't know. It's like you're 50-50, but it depends on what direction they want to go in.
Yeah, I agree with that. I am a little torn on Carlos Beltran. My main reason for wanting Beltran is Francisco Lindor. Yes. I think that Beltran could relate so well to Lindor, obviously the Puerto Rican connection, but switch hitter coming into New York, not doing well at first, but then the very next year being an MVP candidate. I think that Beltran would help Lindor get over those mental struggles he's having, because we know a lot of it's mental. And would get if anyone's gonna help Lindor, if there's any manager I could do it, I think it would be Carlos Beltran. The other thing that I like about Beltran is that since he did play in what I consider the old school mindset, stealing bases, which Beltran did, putting the ball in play, not being worried about lefty-righty matchup, all these other new theories they have nowadays. Since Beltran wasn't a part of that, I think if he had the power, he would try to be a little more old school, I think. So that is something that I like over Luis Rojas. But what I don't like is, like we said, him being a total rookie. He could be worse than Rojas. I mean, like, it's when you have a rookie, that it's possible. Anything could be worse when you do have a rookie. So that doesn't really help with Rojas. Because we talk about Rojas, does he have? He is a coach, but does he have experience managing a big league team? He doesn't know what he's doing, things like that. I don't know if Beltran does. And the other thing that I don't like about Carlos Beltran is that this was a good thing when he was a player, but he was so even keel. I mean, Beltran got ejected very few times, very few. Lost his cool very few times. So what concerns me is that when the Mets start to do dumb things, which they do plenty of, when they take pitches right down the middle, when they make dumb outs on the bases, when they miss the cutoff man, I don't see Beltran as a guy that's going to just go off on the players, be like, what are you guys doing? And just completely curse them out and be like, this has got to change, and just be on top of them and hold them accountable. I see Beltran as more of a player's manager, more gets along with everybody, stays calm. And then the other thing that I do not see Beltran working out with is that Luis Rojas has to talk to the media multiple times a day. I don't think Beltran would like that, nor is suited for that. You look at what's happened the past couple of weeks with Luis Rojas and Evan Roberts on WFM. Evan just rushing Rojas to his face pretty much, just going right at him, cutting him off, making him sound like a dummy. I don't think Beltran would go for any of that. So I think the fit of New York as a manager, I don't think Beltran. Why would you want that? I mean,
you also have the cheating scandal right on top of that too.
Yeah,
they're going to go after him for that, and it's
course.
not like, you have Detroit and you have Boston. This is the New York media we're talking about. They love to dig up every piece of crap that you have done. If you took a crap in the toilet a different way, they're going to go after you. And that's what they do.
On top of what you're saying right there, that's why I'm a little worried. This is kind of like going a little off topic. I am a little worried about bringing Theo Epstein here because of everything that's happened with, Jared Porter, who was under him mostly in Chicago, where all this stuff went down. So you know for a fact that all of that is going to be brought up as soon as he gets here. So I'm a little worried about bringing that in here. I hope they kind of get a second chance to reach out to the guys in Cleveland and the guy in Milwaukee. And even if they can somehow pry away somebody from the Tampa Bay Rays, that would be where I would go. But, everyone wants Theo. I'm just saying, be careful what you wish for. As great as he is as an executive, they're going to pick him apart on this issue, and it's going to come to the forefront eventually.
I don't know why. I mean, maybe it's just me, but it seems like the media has this hidden agenda against the Mets where it's like, no, for just some reason, like they only want to bring up the negative stuff, especially the national reporters, whether it's Buster Olney or, all these guys. They just always seem all of a sudden there's a story about the Mets. There's a scandal about the Mets. They just question everything about them. As soon as they do something wrong, why'd you do this? Why'd you do that? Why didn't you do that? With Beltran's going to happen because of the whole Astros thing. They purposely rat him out. I think maybe because he was the Mets manager at the time, they purposely named him. So they're going to bring that up. And then, like you said with Theo Epstein, they're going to bring up Porter. They're going to bring up Zach Scott. So no matter what, the Mets are just in a tough spot with those two guys. And again, we talk about that New York media. It's just not appealing. I don't know why someone would sign up for this, to go through all that stress and just annoyingness. It is such an inconvenience to come to New York, be booed, be questioned all the time, be looked at, be tweeted about all day, be tweeted at all day, have to deactivate your Instagram accounts. Like, who would want that?
I really, truly think that this is someone that Steve Cohen needs to kind of pick out or be a part of the process, because I personally think that he handles the media quite well. He don't care. He's going to say what he wants to say. Look what happened today with Puma. I mean, I thought he handled it just the way he wanted to. And they all say, oh, maybe Steve should stop talking. But in reality, they don't want him to stop talking because it's headlines for them. So he's giving them everything that they want and doing it his way. So he wins in the end at the end of the day.
You know, I mean, that is a good point because what happened today was very bizarre, especially because that article was a few days ago. Then all of a sudden this morning, coach is like, oh, yeah, who is this guy anyway? He's like, I'm going to rat out the source, which we know journalists, you never want to give up a source. That is like the biggest sin. Like, you cannot do that. And Cohen's like, I was going to call him out, make it a contest. Like, and he really just – and then just to completely bury the guy by saying, who is this guy anyway? Like, I mean, and called him out by name. That is really some unprecedented stuff. So, and that's something that, again, that goes into the hiring process. Like, listen, if I bring you in to manage or be the GM, I'm going to be on Twitter doing my thing, and you're going to get bad press. Can you handle that? Are you going to be open to that? And then we're going through the whole team under the bus about the OPS numbers and slugging numbers. It's like, are you okay with that? I mean, like, those are things that you have to know beforehand. You can't just be like, oh, that caught me off guard. I didn't think Cohen was going to be like that. Like, he's very unpredictable in that regard.
He's a fan too, so he's going to speak his mind. And I feel like a lot of people don't realize that he's also a troll. Like, he really, half of the stuff, he's very sarcastic. He's a what is he? He's one of those wise guys. I mean, that's what he is.
He has fun with it.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, I don't know. It's one of those things where it's like he's gonna do it with the way that he does. And to be honest, he's called out the New York Post. He's called out Andy Martino. He's a fucking hero to me at this point. And I think his first year was a success just doing those two things at this point. No.
So the next thing, do you want to say something, Hayden?
Yeah, it's probably best I don't.
Oh, okay, I agree with that sentiment.
Yes.
All right, so now we have the studs and the duds for the week. Guys who obviously played well and guys who didn't play well. That you're like, hey, what's going on with this guy? He really didn't step up in the past week. So Hayden, this is your specialty. Who should we DFA following this week's performance?
Well, first, how the hell did the Cubs blow a 7-0 lead in one inning? Literally, 7 runs in an inning. Like Chicago, what
tank.
Honestly, studs and duds. Well, studs beat Alonso. Alonso's a beast now. Realistically, I'm probably going to go Javier Baez. I mean, his last 7 games, someone wants to type the slash line in the chat, please do. His home runs, RBIs, walks, and strikeouts. Put it in the chat if you guys do. Studs, I'm going to go Javier Baez. He's been looking awesome. He's been hitting the ball for power. He's been hitting the ball the other way more. He's been striking out a lot less. He's been walking out more. We know they shared the fact that like 30% of the pitches he gets are outside of the zone. So he's going to stop swinging, and that's going to force these pitchers to throw in the zone more. Hence, contact, home runs, hits, singles, etc. So yeah, Baez is going to look great. In terms of duds, I mean, we really got a lot of guys, but I'm really going to go Jeff Mcneil. Pretty much we saw Jeff Mcneill smashed his helmet like a dozen times against the ground. He got moved to the ace spot in the lineup, which, as Frank pretty much stated, it means you suck. So yeah, Mcneill didn't have the best week. He did make up for it the other day, almost hitting for the cycle, but I mean, 6 out of the 7 days he pretty much struggled. That Yankee series was tough for him. So yeah, stud is Javier Baez. Dud is Jeff Mcneill, the flying squirrel.
And Subway to Shea, who is your stud and dud?
I'm going to go with dud first. So let's go with Jury's Familia. Dude's given up a couple of big bombs and in big spots. And as okay as he's been, I think I'm ready to move on from the Jury's Familia era. I think it's time to, wipe the hands clean, let him go. He played decently this year, but I can't do it anymore. I can't have him and Edwin Diaz on the team and, blow games. I just can't do it anymore with that. Stud, I'm going to go Marcus Strowman. He's been a stud all season. Can we just say that he's been a stud all season and he's been kind of carrying the rotation? I wasn't a fan of his comments at the end, not pushing himself a little bit. I get it. He's coming back from, not playing 60 games, and he's, trying to preserve his arm, obviously for free agency. He left that out, but that's like a big reason. But I really wish he would have said that, I told Louis I wanted to go out there and continue to pitch. And his answer was, oh, if I would have went out, maybe I would have gave up 3 home runs. Like, why is that a mentality for you? Like, what? I feel like Louis Rojas has instilled this on this entire team. But I've been a fan of him all year. They should re-sign him. He's been a stud, and he's really picked up ever since DeGrom went down.
Okay, this is a very important question I have for you specifically, because not everyone could say yes to this or no, I should say. Have you been blocked by Marcus Strowman on Twitter?
I have not. I try not to, I don't want to, push the limits with tweeting at him or anything like that. I get him doing all this. It does get annoying on Twitter when people are constantly like tweet you nonsense all the time. And, even when you try to be positive, they want to be negative. And then you're negative, and then they get on you for being negative. If you get on Luis Rojas, there's a section of fans who love Luis Rojas. Or if you get on Jeff Mcneill, there's the Jeff Mcneill. You can never win. But he does go at people, which I think gets a little frustrating too. He's not like right down the middle with his, comments and stuff like that. But I have not been blocked yet.
So you're part of a very exclusive club then, because
I guess so, yeah.
Especially not many like Mets, content creators could say that. I have not, because I've never really had a problem Marcus Strowman. My thing is that as long as you play well for my team and you don't commit a crime, you're good.
For the most part, it's been positive all year. I thought he's done great. The only thing that's bothered me was the press conference after his game. That's the only problem I had. And it's more on Luis Rojas than it is on Strowman, because Luis Rojas has put this mentality in all their heads. He's not pushing any of these guys, which, okay, I guess so. You don't have to. Strowman, like I said, he didn't pitch a full season. He didn't pitch at all in last season. He's coming in and, they're trying to monitor the innings. This is the most he's pitched. I get that. But, like, there's a lot of guys, like, the decision-making and what he's putting into these guys' heads. I mean, maybe Seth Lugo could come out and pitch. But, like, we won't know, because Luis Rojas is thinking 3 games ahead. Well, if I don't have him here, then the guy pitched 7. He threw 7 pitches. Can we try to throw him in another inning? If he can't, you know what? You have somebody ready to go, which something Luis Rojas doesn't do is have somebody ready in the bullpen to go. I don't know. I've had enough of Luis Rojas, so it takes away from Marcus Strowman being a stud, but he's the stud for me.
Well, you're preaching to the choir. We've been saying that all along. I totally agree. I mean, because you come down to the stretch where it's like you said before about you're going to rest in 2 weeks, so you really have to have all hands on deck, and just having that approach of I call scared to lose, with the whole don't swing the bat, bunt the guy over, don't go first to third, don't send the run because you might get thrown out. You can't have that happen.
Or
you can't
even
take a chance.
Even with Strowman with the bases loaded, he's not swinging because they don't want him to get into a double play. We don't know if he's going to get into a double play because he didn't swing. Maybe he could have. Maybe a chopper would have happened. Baseball's supposed to be unpredictable, and what Luis Rojas is making this team predictable. And the other teams have caught on to it, and they've beaten them for it. It's just even Luis Rojas, when he was saying, "Oh, I got to rest these guys. They can't play." Well, what you told me is they don't have what it takes to get to 162 games. That's what I was told by Luis Rojas. He didn't say it outright, but that's what the underlying comment was these guys will not make it to 162 games, so we're going to coast it for the rest of the way.
Yeah, and the whole situation with Lugo on Monday, where you had Jake Reed come into a massive game, and it's tied. You made a big comeback, and you're letting Jake Reed just completely blow it, just put a huge fire, and Lugo just under no circumstances could come in. Then you go to Trevor Williams, more damage, still can't go Lugo. Like, there is just no chance in the world that Lugo
6
can come to
career
that game.
appearances. Jake Reed, in the biggest game of the year, 6 career appearances he's had in the major leagues. Then after that, doing this righty-lefty thing, and we get Albert Almora coming in the biggest at-bat of the game. Like, how does that happen? I get that maybe it's a lefty. Okay, but, like, can we try something different? What you're doing is not working now and hasn't worked all season. Try something different.
I mean, no matter if it's a lefty, righty, or a guy that's pitching backwards, Albert Almora is not the best option to go to. It's the worst option to go to. And how ironic is it that the day after Almora comes up in one of the biggest spots of the year, he's sent down the very next day. Oh, then why did we go to him? And Luis Guillorme was not used. The guy who he could battle at the plate, he could draw a walk, he could put the ball in play. And Kevin Pillar just got on base right before that on a very weird play. It was hit very weak, but he got on base. Who knows? Maybe Luis Guillorme does the same thing. But nope, I got to go to the righty. And he's done that all year long. The same thing happened where he doesn't want to intentionally walk a guy because he's a lefty. He doesn't want to bring in a pitcher because he's a lefty. I mean, he's had that, like you said, that mindset the whole year. Yep. It hasn't worked at any point. It still isn't working, and he still won't change it.
I mean, there's so many defining games for him, but this one is the biggest one because in the biggest game of the year where you could be, what was it? There were going to be 1.5 games out. Everyone lost. Yes. That needed to lose. Yeah. The Mets had this game right there for the taking. And the biggest pitching spot goes to a guy who pitched 6 appearances in his career. And then
coming off the IL.
Right. And then goes to the batter who has 7 hits all season. And you're expecting him to get the biggest hit of the year?
And what's so weird is that Trevor Williams was available. And then once the Mets were making that rally in the bottom half of the inning, Brad Hand started warming up. So it's like, if Brad Hand was available the whole time, why wasn't he in over Jake Reed? It was just very odd. But you go ahead.
Where's Chris Drury? Where are these guys?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, one thing I wanted to point out with Rojas, which has been a constant thing, is that, I mean, you guys are kind of talking about his bullpen decisions. His bullpen decisions have clearly been one of his weakest managerial things this season. My favorite was when he took out Trevor May from the setup man over that poor start against the Yankees by giving up a home run Aaron Judge because his fastball wasn't so meaty. And then you put in Juris Familia. As soon as Familia gave up that walk, I was like, home run incoming. I was walking up my stairs in my house, and I said that. I get up the flight, boom, it's gone. Cardinals have the lead. I was like, yup. And then after Familia blows it, then you put in May. So after it's blown, then May's your setup man. And I thought it was established that May was the setup man. It's either Lugo or May, but no. And this has been the same thing with Rojas all season. You put in Loop, you put in Lugo to get out of a situation where it's bases loaded, 2 outs. They'll throw 5 pitches. Oh, innings over. Oh, sorry. Actually, you know what? We don't need you. And it's nothing to do with them coming up to bat. You know, we have the top of the order coming up to bat, let's say. And what do? Oh, arm mechanics. Oh, we need their arms nice. It's September. What do you mean you need your arms freaking crisp? You know,
I don't even blame
thing.
I don't blame Rojas for bringing in May in the 8th inning against the Yankees. I blame him for taking out Lugo with only 7 pitches.
Loop too the other day.
He took out Loop too. With 7 pitches. Yeah.
How much rest do these guys need? Because he's been doing it all season. You rest them in the beginning for the playoff stretch at the end. And he's just been resting them all year. And he made that comment on, I think, Evan Roberts with Carton and Roberts about, oh, this game is just as important as the game in April. Well, they're kind of different games. They're different.
And he's not acting like it is either. That's the problem. He didn't act like that in April. He didn't like that in September, that every game is so important.
Well, they are the same games. To be fair, they are the same games.
He said,
losing them.
Yeah, he's saying that it has the same value right now. He's saying that right now, present day, of a game in April that you can't undo. You can't do anything about. And you're saying that right now it's not as important. You have 15 games left. You are 5 games out of your division. You are 4 and a half games out of your wild card.
5.5 now.
5.5 games out of the wild
Yeah.
card. You're telling me you don't have a sense. He basically openly admitted that he has no sense of urgency.
Which we can tell all along with their approach.
And then he had the goal to say, I still think we have a chance.
Yeah. I mean, he's not gonna say I quit. We suck. I get that part of it, but he's just done that all year long, and it's been really frustrating, no doubt about it. But Mets fan, I guess just to finish, you real quick, you're done and done because we went a little bit of a rant on Rojas. So if you have anyone you want to add or bash.
Yeah, I mean, stud, I'm going to go with JD Davis. And I think it's because he's played his role so well. And I said this earlier that I did not know how well he was going to be in that pinch hitting spot and be off the bench.
Because he didn't do well in 2019 off the bench.
Exactly.
He said he didn't like it. He said he does better. And that happened. Once he was a starter in 2019, that's when he took off.
He's a reps type of guy. And that was kind of like the question that I went with Jose Martinez when they signed him. But then he kind of eased into that in the minor leagues. So yeah, I think he's done very well in that role. He's got on base to set the table for the next guys. Obviously they didn't drive him in because it's the Mets. So yeah, it's whatever. And then Dud, I'm just gonna go with Albert Almora because he pisses me off. He's a terrorist. I can't deal with him. And the fact that he's up here, I mean, I'm fine bringing up Jose Peraza, but the fact that he's up here over Khalil Lee, we have not seen anything of Khalil Lee, who has improved so much this year. It makes absolutely no sense. The fact that Kevin Pillar, that we're seeing so much of Kevin Pillar, even with Nimmo out, you don't have Nimmo there, and you're still not looking for another outfielder that's in the minor leagues. I mean, it just makes absolutely no sense. Khalil Lee deserves a second chance to be up here, and I'm just pissed off. And the fact that they literally put him up there, who is not even good against lefties. He's not good against anybody. He's not good against anything. I don't think he's ever played baseball in his life at this point. And Luis Guillorme is your fourth best hitter against left-handed pitching. It makes absolutely no sense to me. I mean, just Albert Almora is just terrible.
He has won 2 games for the Mets this season. One with his bat and one with his glove. That's more than I can say for Albert Almora Jr. this season.
It's ridiculous. Yeah.
When I went to the Marlins game down in Miami, the game that Almora had like 2 hits, that was some weird history I saw. That was like the one time I remember I was in the car and I was like, crap, Almora's in the lineup today? Damn, I should have today's game. The dude had like 2 hits and an RBI. I think it was his only RBI with the team.
He's just proven what he can do. I mean, he's already proven what he's able to do. This guy was I'm pretty sure the 6th overall pick in the draft. I'm pretty sure in 2012. And he was actually scouted as a hit first prospect, which makes absolutely no sense. The fact that like how Ahmad Rosario was a defensive prospect. It just, and he was literally told as this 5-tool player. I'm pretty sure Byron Buxton was like, they were saying that they shouldn't have took him instead of Byron Buxton. Like, it's just, he was scouted so bad and he's basically shown his full capacity. Like, it's just, I don't get it. The fact that he's here over a guy who has such a ceiling as Khalil Lee makes no sense to me. I don't get it.
Totally agree. And Almora is on the last year of his deal, so you have to give Khalil a chance next year. Like, it absolutely has to happen. I mean, there's no reason
Martinez too. Jose Martinez as well. Like, another guy that can destroy lefties.
Yeah. Imagine if you had Jose Martinez batting there instead of Albert Almora.
With a team that's depleted and can use a little fresh blood since they're, they can't make it till the end. Where are those guys? Like, bring them up. Where's Drury? Bring him back up. Like, what's happening?
Yeah.
Rest.
Yeah, exactly.
If these guys need rest them for the rest of the season and bring up guys that are fresh and that want to play. They'll probably win a few more games too.
Yeah, but we know Mets don't try anything new because the same stuff obviously works. Okay, so the last question I have, it was a viewer question, but I put a little twist on it to make it a little more juicy. So they said, who's the most important Met to extend this offseason? And the twist I want to put is that is not an expiring free agent. So this would be the Nimmo, Alonso, Mcneill, guys like that, just guys that you could get maybe at a discount price. Since they're not expiring free agent, you want to get out ahead of that free agency now. Get them at a lower AAV because we know what matters is AAV for the luxury tax. So, Hayden, if there was, well, I know your answer, but if there was one man who was not an expiring free agent that you could get a contract extension done in the offseason, who would it be?
Pete!
Okay. So I had a feeling that was going to be your answer. But what about you, Anthony? What guy would you want to try to extend before you have to worry about their contract?
Yeah, until Nimmo can prove that he's healthy, the answer is Pete Alonso by far. He's proven that he could hack it in this league. He had his little sophomore slump last year. He's basically carried this team on his back. I know he's had some bad at-bats in some big spots, but he can't do everything for the team. I mean, the guy's now over 100 home runs, only 3 years. And to be fair, the second year was cut short, so he might have a lot more. We might be closer to 150 to 200 home runs right now with Pete Alonso. So, yeah, it's got to be Pete. He's earned that.
What about you, Metsfan? Are you going to change it up, or are you going to go with the
I am going to change it up.
All right.
And I'm going to actually say two. And one of them's a front office guy. I'm going to talk about Jeremy Hefner first. And the thing is that you have so many guys in that front office who have just been so inefficient. I want to hold on to the one that actually can do their fucking job. And he has just done a amazing job. I mean, you've seen like all these guys with potential before he got here. You saw Steven Matz, you saw all these guys, but they never really had that elite, full potential rotation or pitching staff. And then he comes in here. The Mets here, I mean, they've had their struggles, but they're top 10 in everything, like right now, pitching wise. So he's got them to that next level. Now, for player, it's DeGrom, 100%. You sit him down, you say, I will give you any piece of material that you want. If you want it on gold bars, if you want it in silver bars, you can have it. Because DeGrom is that guy. He's the franchise player. He needs to be a Met for his entire career. I don't want it ending up like Tom Seaver. I don't want it ending up like, Doc Gooden was a different story. I don't want it ending up with guys like, of course, Darryl Strawberry, but again, that was another story. I don't want it. I need him to end his career in Queens. 100%. He belongs here. He needs to be here for his entire career. I don't blame him for wanting to leave, to be honest, but I want him to the end of time. He's the guy that can go the distance.
Yep. And then I'll change it up. I will go Brandon Nimmo, although he has to stay healthy. But I think in order for me to get the most bang for my buck and keep Nimmo healthy, I have to bring in a real center fielder so that I can move Nimmo to left, less wear and tear, less running. This way you don't pull the hamstring or the neck or don't pull anything. If you're in left field, you won't be running as much. So I just think that Brandon Nimmo, you see the difference when he's in the lineup and when he's not in the lineup. And there aren't a lot of guys like Brandon Nimmo. I mean, there are some players that can be replicated that, like, you know what, this guy does some good things, but there are plenty of other guys do this. There are many guys that do what Nimmo does, and that is get on base at such an elite clip, always putting together a good AB, always working the count, putting the ball in play most of the time, give you really good speed on the bases, really good clubhouse guy, doesn't complain, doesn't care how much he plays, doesn't care where he bats in the order, no problems off the field. I mean, he's just a really good guy to have on your team. I would hate to see him go, and I'd love to get him at a discount because if I want to give Javi Baez big money, if I want to give Marcus Stroman big money or whoever else, DeGrom, I want to still have Nimmo. But if I want to get that lowest AAV, I got to do the deal like right now where I could buy out those arbitration years. And it's hard to say no to a raise right now. I mean, if someone says, you're getting paid $3 million right now, what if I give you 17? How do you turn that down? And I think Nimmo is a guy that is a team first guy that wouldn't be like, no, I'm holding out till free agency. I want $30 million a year. I don't see Nimmo as that kind of guy because he is such a team player. So Brandon Nimmo would be my response. But to get the most out of that contract, I would love to get a true center fielder. So that answers all of the questions. We were able to get to everything. We have a couple minutes left, so we will let everyone talk about their channel and podcast and anything else that they want to promote that they have going on, or any closing statements. So let's start with Metsfan from YouTube.
All right. Well, I'm Metsfan. I'm a analytical person with all the stuff, and sometimes on Twitter, like it's been mentioned from Anthony, I rate my opinion a lot there, maybe more than I should. But I got a series that is coming out during the offseason that I'm excited for, talking about a lot of Mets history, and kind of going in a little bit of a sequence. So that's going to be pretty fun. But we got to win. And if we can't win, we're not going to win for the rest of the year. So, yeah, LFGM. Thank you to Anthony Rivera from Subway to Shea for joining us as well. And yeah, LFGM, boys. LFGM.
Good. Let's start with Hayden. Anything you have that's coming out that the people should know about?
No, nothing really is coming out, but Mets Talk with Hayden is the name, Raging is the game. Yeah, pretty much. I did a live stream earlier today in regards to the Mets and Cardinals summary, as well as the Mets and Phillies preview. So if you want to rewatch it on replay, that'd be very much appreciated. But yeah, pretty basic stuff, live streams on summaries, news updates, all that great stuff. The offseason's coming up, so obviously I'm sure all of us are going to have a lot to talk about with free agency. If you guys want to follow me on Twitter, @MetsHayden, that'd be appreciated. I want to thank Frank for hosting today's stream and our guest, Anthony, joining, as well as Metsfan as always, LFGM.
And our special guest, Anthony, from the Subway to Shea podcast. Tell us about it. Tell us, what we could look forward to.
Well, first off, I can't thank you guys enough for having me on. I really appreciate it. This was a lot of fun. I love doing these live streams. I don't get to really do that with the podcast since it's a more audio thing. Hopefully at some point I'll add a little video element to it. But I started it as soon as Steve Cohen took over. I thought that now is probably a good time to get into, podcasting. I've always wanted to talk Mets. I thought maybe it'd be a little different now that the Wilpons are gone. That did not go swimmingly well this first season. But I'm working on an interview this coming week. I'm not going to give away who the person is, but it has something to do with the 30 for 30. So I think that's going to be a good one. And I hope that everyone gets to listen to it. You can follow me at Subway to Shea on Twitter. I do a lot of tweeting, so you can catch me on there. And I like to promote guy stuff, so send me things. I'll retweet it out. I'm always here for that, and I always love hearing everybody else's content. So I really appreciate you including me now in this mix.
Of course, we're very glad to have you. Again, everybody's stuff is in the description. So if you need the links because you're too lazy, you don't know how to type into a search bar, I did the work for you. So you're welcome. Anyways, until next week, let's go Mets. At least make it interesting. Win a couple games so that the season isn't mathematically over and you ruin our content. I mean, please, just win some games. That is all I could ask for. And again, keep it under 4 hours. That's a nice bonus, especially if you're
please.
Don't make me start to 12:30 to see Jake Reed come in and blow the game. But thank you, everybody, for watching. Be safe, everyone.